Hey everyone, so today's video we're going to draw a puppy dog and it's going to be a step-by-step tutorial. I thought it'd be cool to do one of these videos for you guys, haven't done one in a while. This is what we're working with, just a black and white drawing, very simple. Grab your paper and pencil and follow along. Alright, so I'm just going to start with a square canvas, and to begin our dog we're going to use the same layer, technical pencil. The only modifications I've made is I've turned off all the tilt settings and I'm using it on the highest brush size and full opacity. So we're going to start off by drawing a circle. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. So let's say this is our circle. Here we're going to put a slant somewhere in the middle for the eyes and the nose. I'm going to go ahead and add the eyes in right now. Don't make them too large. It's going to make the drawing a little bit more, childish. So if you keep the eyes slightly smaller and then add a little bit more detail later, it's going to have more of a caricature feel instead of like an anime, just somebody who doesn't really think about proportions and stuff too much. We'll just go in and just drop in there. It's like a cheap way of gaining a cute look. So now, as you can see, I erased the lines within the circles and drew two slightly smaller circles, both sort of closer to the inside line, and that's the pupils. So the nose, we are going to exaggerate the shape of a nose. The top of it is going to lie on that line, and since it's a dog, you can also look at dog's nose references if you want more detail, but we're just going to simplify this for the sake of easily following along. For the ears, we're going to do almost triangular. It comes at a slant. So the way that these ears are going to work is we're following the outside of the circle here, and we're extending that line up towards the ear. Okay, so the next thing you could also do is slightly reduce that curve of the head up top, kind of just sculpt away a little bit of the extras to give it more of a head shape. Now, you're also going to want to further sculpt the sides of the head. We can go down a little bit. It looks like this side is already pretty good. And we're going to give the overall head, as you can see, less of a circular look, but it's still very round. So now the ears match up with the head, with the outside shape. The next thing, if we want to continue working on the ears, is erase a little bit around the top. Draw another line with a little hook at the end of it in here. And now you've got ears. As you can see, if I shade just this part right here, it really makes the ears a lot more three-dimensional, a little bit more pop. And another thing that you can further do to help give the ears their form is cut a little bit out of that really straight line on the outside. You can soften that edge just a tad. And we'll do some fur additions in the future so it won't look out of place. Now, another thing that I don't want to forget is we can erase these lines right here. And you can also give your dog eyebrows. They can be pretty much any shape you'd like. And another thing that we could do, or we should do, is if we want a mouth, to draw a similar shape to the head for the mouth area around the nose. Now the nose isn't perfectly in the middle, it sits at the very top. And down the middle, we're going to have the line which separates the cheeks and then goes into the mouth. The mouth is shaped kind of like these slopes. They slope upwards at the very end. They come out at an upside down Y shape, as you can see, just not very aggressively. If you make it very aggressive, the dog is going to look more sad. So something to keep in mind if we want a happy dog. Now we can drop a little bit of a similar shape right here for the lower lip, and that is our dog head for now. So let's continue on to the body. I'm going to create a new layer. You could do this on the same layer since this is only a sketch, but I'm going to create a new layer, and now we begin with the body. So eyeing approximately how we want this to look, I think I want to start with a line going straight down and then curving a little bit on the inside at the very bottom, and then on the other side a line that slopes outwards ever so slightly. Maybe it's not so slightly, as you can see, you've got quite a bit of space here, but the idea is to have this slanted kind of milk dud shape. So with this shape here, we're going to create a Y somewhere underneath the nose, as you can see. And then we're going to cut that line straight down. I want to exaggerate the X a little bit, have it come out wider. And then we're going to put these slants outside of it. So this right here, these are the paws. If I draw little U's at the bottom, and then erase these straight lines, we now have a paw. Now for the back legs, that little area that's still left untouched, we're going to go ahead and have that curve that we originally drew come down. I needed to fix the shape of mine a little bit. And then underneath the curve, we do another paw shape, but we just stop when it hits another line. That's the rear paw. Also, the top of the paw, or the rear paw, should not overlap our arm. So if you can imagine, this front leg is in front of the back leg, and the back leg has this like drumstick, that drumstick muscle, I don't know what you would call it, and it sits all along here. So it intersects the front paw here, and it's a very similar story with the back paw, except now because we have more surface area here, we need to show a little bit more of the leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a full paw-like shape on the left here. And we're going to go and we're going to do the same shape here on the outside. But this time we're going to leave this space empty right here. And we're going to erase any extras. We didn't have to go that far out. And now on the inside, we can erase that a little bit because there's nothing there. Touch up the paw line a little bit. And here we have our body. So again, quick recap. It's a good idea to draw your paw away from the body. If you draw one close, well then your dog is going to be sitting a little bit awkward. But I guess you could still work around it. But for this drawing in particular, what you're going to want to do is draw it further out. Okay, now let's do any adjustments we might need. I feel like this area right here can use a little bit more curve. And as a whole, I would like to lower this line on the head so that it sits a little bit better. I'm going to switch over to our head layer and erase some of that. Okay, I'm going to merge these two layers because now we can move on to the next step. And the next step should be to actually clean up some more lines. I can start by removing the lines around the mouth to see whether I like the result. I could remove some of the lines on the neck to see if I like the result. And then I can soften the transition between the head and the body. And we can also add a tail with just some U-shapes, some slanted lines. Now keep in mind, you don't want to add, let me undo the tail real quick. You don't want to add a tail too low because the leg is there. And you don't want to add a tail too high because where is it attached to, right? You know, it's not on the top of his back, it's like at the butt area. So if you can imagine, the butt is probably somewhere right here, and the tail, if it comes out, we'll do something like that. But we'll curve it a little bit just to make it a lot more noticeable, I guess. It's a shape that you can recognize. So some of the next steps that I might do as well are drawing in more of a fur feel. So to do that, I could either draw on the same exact layer, or we can lower the opacity just a little bit, create a new layer, and redraw. And most of the lines that are on the outside are ones that I can easily add fur to. You want to vary the lines. Have some areas where the fur sticks out a lot further. Shaggy areas like the shoulders. I would say even the cheeks, the cheek areas here could use a little bit more fur. So the lines on the inner side of the body, the chest area here would be very, very furry, especially if we're doing more of like a husky type dog, you know, or just a very hairy dog. It doesn't, I guess this isn't really breed specific. It's not necessarily a tutorial that teaches you how to draw realistically, but more of how you can follow step by step and draw a dog without having any real prior knowledge to doing so. So here we've got all the little scribbles in there. Let's go ahead and for the ears, instead of drawing this lower line, we're going to fill it with some more aggressive scribbles to show that there's hair in the ears. The paws, we can keep the base somewhat smooth. It doesn't have to be furry as well, but the outside parts could be. And the tail's fine the way it is. It doesn't need to be too crazy either. Now make sure you don't miss any lines. All that's left is the face. If we don't feel like redrawing the face, here's what you can do. You can turn the opacity back up, grab a transform tool, select the face, hit the little double arrow button at the bottom. It's going to inverse the selection. Go back to your layer and hit clear. So it's going to clear everything but the inverse selection. So looking at our drawing now, after it cleared some of it, because we went over everything, and since we didn't redraw the lines exactly, some detail feels like it's missing. So I'm going to go back and just eyeing it out, make any sort of adjustments that I feel will help the drawing, will help the readers and stuff, the viewers, understand the form a bit more. So we're going to add some scribbles here. We could even do some very basic paws by drawing these slanted shapes. There you go, that's our dog so far. Okay, the next step is to add a little bit more detail. Now we can zoom in and color the eyes in. We can then grab an eraser, lower the opacity a little bit. Well, actually lower the size. The opacity is controlled by the pressure, but not pushing down too hard. We can give 2 little dots for the reflection. Keep in mind, if I do a dot here on the other side, you don't want to put it on the same place of the circle. You want to actually mirror the angle. So if the sunlight is coming from here, 1 dot will be there, and if it's still coming from here, the dot shouldn't be here. It should still be on the inside. I hope that makes sense. So we've done that. That's why when you draw eyes and then add reflections, you don't mirror what the reflection would look like if the eye was flipped. Otherwise, it's going to look a little bit goofy. Now, you could definitely have 2 light sources, but then you would have 2 reflections. Okay, so now we're going to color in the eyebrows just a little bit. If we want, we can come in quickly and add a little bit of shading to the inside of the ears. You don't have to use strokes the same way that I do, but if you shade something directionally on purpose, it could help give it more shape. Now the nose itself is also fairly dark. Most dogs, I think, have black noses. If you want, you can go in and add some highlights. But you know what I'm actually going to do is I want to add highlights a little bit higher up where the nose has this like really dark outline. And here we can add little half circles to the base and have that darker line go down the middle. Okay, the next thing that I want to do real quick is whiskers. And whiskers, since I'm going to merge these 2 layers, since I'm not sure if I'm going to mess up and want to redo it, an easy way to avoid that is to create a new layer. We're going to drop some basic little whisker holes on both sides. I advise not having them be identical, so don't mirror it. It's just a couple of dots, shouldn't take too long. And here we're going to lower the size, just because I don't want, if I don't lower the size of the brush, we're going to get really thick whiskers. So I'm going to drop down to about a 30% and just kind of, okay, that really long one kind of messes it up, so I'm going to undo. But yeah, just start by pressing kind of hard, and as you swipe outwards, lower the opacity by lightly, gradually releasing the pencil. And you want to vary up the size, the direction, the length. I don't really like how that looks. Let's try again. So see, that's why I created a new layer. I can easily delete that. And I should also probably create a new layer for the whisker holes so I don't have to redraw those every time. So leave the whisker holes on that layer. That's a little wild. You can get away with some really crazy whiskers if your design sort of pushes in that direction, something like that. But that's all, preference. And you can undo with a quick double finger tap on your screen in order to get something that you're happy with. Okay, that's it for our dog drawing, but we can always add color and values. So I think I'm going to save that for part 2. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.